الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he retreated, like we said, strategically onto the top of the mountains, and Abu Sufyan came and he said what he had to say, and the Muslims responded to him, and then they left. And before leaving, Abu Sufyan, he said, next year at the same time we'll meet again in Badr, meaning for another battle, which is very key. And also then he said, Abu Sufyan, tajiduna fikum muthla, you'll find that some of your dead people, they have been mutilated. Okay, they have been mutilated. And he said, I did not command that, lam umar bihada, wa lam yasu'ni. And also it did not make me angry. I didn't command my soldiers to mutilate your dead, and also it doesn't really make me sad. And then he left. So when he left, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, among the other things which happened, we'll go back to the battle and mention some of the things which happened. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they took the time, they treated his wounds, and then he sent Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu to go after and see what the kuffar they are doing. Because remember, as you saw in the diagram, the kuffar, they are in the direction of Medina. So are they leaving, going to Mecca, or they're going to Medina? Right? Because they've seen the Muslims are injured, they're tired. Are they now leaving, going to Medina to go after the women and the children? Or they're leaving, going to Mecca? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. He said to him, "Ukhruj fi athar al-qawm, go and trace the footsteps of these people. فانظر ماذا يصنعون ماذا يريدون, look what they're going to do. فإن كانوا قد جنبوا الخيل وامتطوا الإبل فإنهم يريدون مكة." If they got on their camels and they are dragging their horses, then they're going back to Mecca. But if they're still on their horses and they're dragging their camels, then they're still fighting, they're going to Medina. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, he followed them, and he saw them that they were dragging their horses. They were riding their camels. So he knew that they're going back to Mecca, so he came and informed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now upon this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came down, obviously, and now he went and looked at those Muslims who had been martyred, shuhada. And from them was Sa'd bin Rabi' radiallahu anhu, and he died right there, meaning he died after the battle. He died of his wounds. And from them was Usayrim radiallahu anhu. And from those who were dead before that, like we know a few of them, Abdullah bin Jahsh, okay, Abdullah bin Haram, the father of Jabir, Mus'ab bin Umair, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, and I'll mention these names after. Okay? But there's some people the Prophet ﷺ asked by name, look for so and so, look for so and so. And obviously among the first ones he asked about was his uncle Hamza. And all of you know how close Hamza was to the Prophet ﷺ. They were not just uncle and nephew. We knew that they were like brothers, because they both suckled or breastfeed from the same woman. Okay? Thuwayba al-Aslamiyya. Hamza suckled from Thuwayba, and the Prophet ﷺ suckled from Thuwayba, and also Abu Salama. Abu Salama, the husband of Salama, before she was married to the Prophet ﷺ. These three, they are brothers by rada'a, by breastfeeding. So the Prophet ﷺ, he asked for people, look for Hamza. And when they found him, they saw him obviously, وَقَدْ مُثِّلَ بِهِ. He was mutilated, his body was mutilated. And they cut off his nose and his ears, and they opened his belly. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لَوْلَا أَن تَجْزَعَ صَفِيَّةُ. If it was not for the fact that Safiya will become angry, okay, so it will become sad. لَتَرَكْتُهُ حَتَّى يَحْشُرَهُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ مِن بُطُونِ الطَّيْرِ وَالسِّبَاعِ. I would leave him just like this, so the birds and the scavenging animals will just eat him, and he'll be resurrected like that. Who's this Safiya? The mother of Az-Zubayr, the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so Safiya is the sister of Hamza. Okay, the sister of Hamza. And that is why now, because the battle ended, the women, they were coming, some of them. The women were coming, some of them. And there's a story to that. When she was coming, Safiya, the mother of Az-Zubayr, obviously. And obviously the Prophet ﷺ, حَزْنَ حُزْنًا شَدِيدًا, and he became very, very angry. And he became very, very sad seeing his uncle like that. He became very sad seeing his uncle like that. Now this hadith is reported by Ibn Abbas. He said when Safiya got the news, she came all the way to Uhud. And when the Prophet ﷺ knew of that, he said to Zubair, now, you speak to your mother. Make sure she doesn't come and see him the way he is, meaning Hamza. His nose is cut off, his ears are cut, his belly is open. But she was a tough woman. She was known to be a tough woman. So Zubair, he couldn't say anything to his mother, so he said to Ali, who's his cousin, and this is now his aunt, his amma. He said to Ali, oh, you talk to your amma, you talk to your aunt. And Ali said, no, I can't talk to her. Okay? When she came, Az-Zubair tried to stop him, and she slapped Az-Zubair, her son, in his chest. And the Prophet ﷺ came to her and stopped her. And he said, إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَىٰ عَقْلِهَا. I fear for her mind. She might go insane. Because they were very close. Safiya and Hamza radiallahu anhum. Okay? But she said, I have to see my brother. And she brought with her 2 cloths. And she looked at him and she started crying and she said, this is the cloth they're doing the kafan, the shroud from my brother. This is how you're going to bury him in. Okay? Now we're going to come back to that story. But among those who were killed also in Uhud, we mentioned Mus'ab bin Umair. And at this moment, we find this man, which we just mentioned, Quzman. If you remember Quzman, he's one of the first people who killed the carrier of the flags. Twice, in fact. Quzman. Now this guy Quzman, he fought very bravely and he killed a lot of the kuffar. But the Prophet ﷺ always said about him, huwa finnar, he's going to the hellfire. He's going to the hellfire. And they were always shocked. Why? Why is he going to the hellfire? And they saw him in Uhud when he was wounded, when he was injured. He took his sword and he killed himself. Fantahara, he killed himself. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said he's going to the hellfire. Because the one who kills himself, suicide we call it in English, in Islam, is one of the most major sins. And the Prophet of Islam ﷺ said what? Man ta'ana nafsahu bihadida, whoever kills himself by stabbing himself, فَحَدِيدَتُهُ فِي يَدِهِ, he'll have that object in his hand. وَهُوَ فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمِ, he'll stay in the hellfire. يَطْعَنُ نَفْسَهُ خَالِدًا مُخَلَّدًا, he'll continue stabbing himself until forever in the hellfire. And whoever commits suicide by drinking poison, he'll be in the hellfire. وَهُوَ يَتَحَسَّى, and he's still drinking the poison in the hellfire forever. There's no suicide in Islam. That is the story of Quzman. Tayyib. And among the other people who we want to mention today was Amr ibn Jamuh, if you remember. Amr ibn Jamuh, who remember who he was? Who was Amr ibn Jamuh? No, the father of 4 sons. Very good. Amr ibn Jamuh, he had 4 sons and all of them were going to fight in Uhud. He was an old man. Tayyib, he was an old man. And they wanted to stop him. But the Prophet ﷺ said what? He said, you can't stop your father. And he went out to fight Amr ibn Jamuh radiallahu anhu. And we said, what about him? Very good. He was crippled. One of his legs was not working properly. And he asked the Prophet ﷺ, if I'm killed today, I'm going to go to Jannah? And the Prophet ﷺ said, I can see you walking in Jannah with your crippled leg. And he's one of those first people who was killed. Now there's a story behind Amr ibn Jamuh which we have to know as Muslims. Because now we finished the battle. This is the aftermath, what happened to some of the notable ones, and what we learn. This guy, Amr ibn Jamuh radiallahu anhu, he is from Banu Salama, from the Ansar of Medina. When the Prophet ﷺ went to Medina and Banu Salama came to him to greet him, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man sayyidukum ya Bani Salama? Who's your chief? Who's your leader or tribe of Salama? فقالوا, they said, Judd ibn Qais. إلا إن نبخله, except that we find him to be stingy. Bakhil. He is miserly. He doesn't give. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم, so the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, وأي داء, and what disease, what sickness, أدوى من البخل, is worse than stinginess. بل سيدكم, then rather from today, your chief is Amr bin Jamuh. So the Prophet ﷺ made him the chief. You cannot be a leader in Islam. You cannot be a good Muslim, let alone a leader, and you're stingy and miserly. You don't give. You just hold. That's not a Muslim's character. It is not a Muslim's character to hold. Bakhil, la. In fact, it's one of the diseases of the heart. Al-Bukhl. Tayyib. Imagine the Prophet ﷺ, they came to greet him. And he says, no, if that's your leader, no. Your leader from today is Amr ibn Jamuh. Tayyib. Your leader is Amr ibn al-Jamuh radiyallahu anhu. And he was killed as a shaheed radiyallahu anhu. Also from the people we mentioned, ya ikhwanu, was what? We mentioned Hanzala. We didn't really mention Hanzala. We mentioned his father, Abu Amir al-Fasiq, the evil guy who had left Medina and he came back. He tried now in the Battle of Uhud to create dissension without the Muslims, and he was the one who dug the holes, which is one of the holes the Prophet ﷺ fell into. His son was a noble Muslim. His name is Hanzala. Hanzala ibn Abi Amir. But we know him as Hanzala al-Ghasil, or Ghasilul Malaika. Hanzala, the one who was washed by the angels. Because at this moment when the Prophet ﷺ came down from the mountain and looking at the dead people, the shuhada of Uhud, they found Hanzala, he is wet, Like someone washed him. You know how someone, when he dies in Islam, we wash their body. We wash their body. They found him, he had been washed. He was the only one of the 70 plus shuhada who was washed. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, غَسَلَهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, the angels washed him. But why? They wanted to know why. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, go ask his wife in Medina. They went and asked her, and she said, when the Prophet ﷺ called on the people to go out to fight, he had just had intercourse with me. He was newly married, a few days in fact. And there was no time for him to take ghusl, the ritual bath, so he left like that. That is where the angels washed him. Hanzala, ghasilul malaika. Imagine, he is the son and the father is the worst criminal. Tayyib. Also, among them who we should mention is Abdullah ibn Haram, like we mentioned, the father of Jabir. And I'll come back to the story of this man. But like I told you, he was an old man, and he told his son Jabir, tomorrow I'm going to go fight, but I'll be from the first ones to be killed. Because he was old. But look how great of a Muslim he is. And if you go back, guys, in the Aqaba, when the people of Medina came to Mecca to tell the Prophet ﷺ, we believe in you, now come to Medina. The story of Abdullah bin Haram started there. And here, he told the Munafiqun, you leave your Prophet, may Allah distance you. Allah will protect His Prophet. And he was, as he said, from the first Muslims to be killed. And he had given his son Jabir his advice. He said, tomorrow I'll be killed, but I give you my advice, take care of the Prophet ﷺ. Second thing, that's the first thing always for the Muslim. Second thing he said, I have loans. Make sure you pay back my loans. Because the loan is something heavy on a Muslim, you have to know that. Even the shaheed, he is killed in a battle, is a shaheed, martyr. He doesn't really go to Jannah unless you pay his loan first. And number 3, he said, you have your sisters, take care of your sisters. Like I said, there were 6 or 8 sisters. And that was the reason Jabir did not go out to fight in Uhud. Because his father kept him in charge of his sisters. Which we are going to come back to that story. But Jabir radiallahu anhu, when he came, now of course he didn't fight, so he came after the battle. Remember, Uhud is very close. They came to Uhud and he heard that his father had been killed. And also they had mutilated him. They had mutilated him. And I wanted to remove, because they covered him, the people told him, don't remove the cover. But the Prophet ﷺ, he removed it. So I could see my father. And then he heard my aunt, the sister of Amr, crying. And the Prophet ﷺ said, why is she crying? And she said, is he in Jannah? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Jinan, many Jannahs, not one. Why are you crying for him? فَمَا زَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ تُظِلُّهُ بِأَجْنِحَتِهَا حَتَّى رُفِعَ. The angels, they continued to spare him under their wings until they took him up. And that is why when the Prophet ﷺ one day he saw Jabir, sad. Imagine, Jabir has a huge responsibility. Loans to pay off and 8 or 6 sisters. He was a young man, barely 20 years old. The Prophet ﷺ, he saw him young and he was stressed and sad. He said, Ya Jabir, malak, what is wrong with you? Araka munkasiran. I see you are broken down, sad. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, ustushhida abi wa taraka iyalan wa daynan. My father was killed and he left family and loans to pay back. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Ala ubashiruka بما لقي الله بما لقيه الله أو بما لقي الله به أباك. Should I not tell you how your father, what happened to him, how Allah met him? قلت بلى, I said, of course, Ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ما كلم الله أحدا قط إلا من وراء الحجاب وإن الله أحيا أباك فكلمه كفاحا أي بدون مترجم, بدون واسطة. Allah does not speak to anyone except if there's a barrier, if there's someone, through the angel. That's how even the prophets get their wahy. Except Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Allah spoke to him directly. But your father, Allah gave him life and spoke to him directly. Allah spoke to him directly. فقال, said to him, Ya abdi, O my servant, tamanna u'tik. Wish, forever you wish, I'll give you. فقال, and he said, تحييني, O my Lord, give me life, فأقتل قتلة ثانية, so I can be killed again for your sake. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إني قضيت أنهم إليها لا يرجعون. As in the Quran. Allah says, once you die, you don't go back. خلاص. And in fact, this happened to all of the shuhada of Uhud. Allah raised them up so much, and Allah then asked them, what do you want? They said, Ya Allah, take us back. So because they saw the grade and the status and the level and the position of the shaheed. They said, oh Allah, take us back so you can be killed again for your sake. And Allah said, no. Once you die, that's it. So they said, oh Allah, then give this news of the high status of the shaheed to our brothers who are still alive. And those are the verses, again in Surah Al Imran, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not think those who are killed for Allah's sake that they are dead. Rather, they are alive with their Lord, they are being provided for. فَرِحِينَ بِمَا أَتَوْا. They are happy with what Allah has given them. وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. And they give good news for their brothers who have not yet met them. أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Don't fear and have no sadness. This is Abdullah bin Haram. Allah gave this man this status. Ikhwan, you have to understand something. It's always what we're talking about. We are human beings, Muslims. We try to be good. We try to stay away from haram. We try to do our good. Pray Isha, pray Maghrib. Why do we do that? We want Allah to be pleased with us, right or wrong. We want to go to Jannah. These are people, they achieved that already. They deserve for us to know them. Imagine. What you want, they got it. We deserve to know them and follow their way. They succeeded. They succeeded. This is Abdullah ibn Haram. Allah spoke to him directly, imagine. From that day, Jabir used to be so happy. Now, we'll talk about the burial after. We'll come back to Abdullah ibn Haram. Someone else we want to mention on that day was Usayrim. Now, Usayrim, his name is Amr bin Thabit, radiallahu anhu. And for the longest time, he was one of the people of Medina. For the longest time, though, he said, I'm not going to become Muslim. Until the day of Uhud. The day of Uhud, Allah put Islam in his heart. Imagine the day of Uhud. All those years, he refused Islam. And so he went out. He became Muslim. And he fought. And he was wounded. And now when they're looking for the dead people, they saw him. And they said, what are you doing here? Did you come to fight to defend your people, Hamiyya? Just for your people? Or did you actually become Muslim? He said, La, in fact, I became a Muslim. In fact, I became a Muslim. And he died right there. And that is why Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to say, إني أعرف رجلا, I know a man, ما صلى لله صلاة. He never prayed even one salah. وهو من أهل الجنة. He's from the people of Jannah. Usayrim radiallahu anhu. He became Muslim went to Uhud right away, was injured, died as a shaheed right there. Now look at the difference, look at the difference. Quzman, he used to act like he's a Muslim, then he killed himself, went to Jahannam. Usayrim, he became the Muslim day off, never prayed even one salah, went to Jannah right away. Tayyib, this is Usayrim radiyallahu anhu. And also from among those ones who were killed on the day of Uhud, ya Akhwani, was Abdullah bin Jahsh. Now Abdullah bin Jahsh, you have to know about him because Abna wa Banat Jahsh, they're going to come a lot. The sons and the daughters of Jahsh. Okay? And one of them is our mother, Zainab bint Jahsh, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdullah bin Jahsh, this hadith is reported by Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. He said when we were standing on the day of Uhud before starting to fight, Abdullah bin Jahsh came to me and said, Ya Sa'd, let's make dua. We're about to fight, let's make dua. We said, okay, so we started to make dua. And I listened to his dua. He said, Ya Rabb, إذا لقينا القوم غدا, tomorrow if we meet the people in fighting, فلقني رجلا شديدا بأسه شديدا حرده. Let me meet someone who's a tough fighter so he can kill me for your sake. And then he can cut off my nose and my ears. So when I meet you, Ya Rabb, you'll ask me, Ya Abdullah, what happened to you? And I say, my ears and my nose were cut for your sake. Sa'di said, I said, Ya Abdullah, what kind of dua is this? He said, what kind of dua is this? He said, but Allah gave him exactly what he wanted. Abdullah bin Jahsh, radiyallahu anhu. Allah gave him exactly what he wanted. And this shows you what, ya Ikhwan? They were real Rajal, they were real men. They were not afraid. They were not afraid. And they wanted to serve Allah's religion. Also from those who was killed was Sa'd bin Rabi' radiyallahu anhu. Now Sa'd bin Rabi', we have to mention him because you have heard of this man a few times. You know who's this man? He was the man who the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made him the brother of Ar-Rahmah bin Auf. When the Muhajirun came to Medina and the Prophet sallallahu did the mu'akha. Remember the story of Ar-Rahmah? He became the brother of Sa'd bin Rabi'. In the famous story, Sa'd bin Rabi' said what? I have a lot of wealth, I'll give you half of it. And I have 2 wives. Whoever you want, I'll divorce her, then you marry her. That is Sa'd bin Rabi'. Sa'd bin Rabi' radiallahu anhu, he was wounded. They found him wounded. They found him wounded. And whoever found him, he said, Ya Sa'd, how are you? Your wounds. He said, La. How is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Go to the Prophet and give him my salam. Say Sa'd bin Rabi' is giving you salam. Okay? When they came, in fact the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, give him my salams. Give him my salams. And he said to them, his last words, he said, La udhrakum inda Allahi. You will have no excuse if they get to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while you still have one breath still left in your lives, meaning defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's how he died. Sa'd ibn Rabi' radiyallahu anhu. So these are some of the stories we wanted to mention, ikhwan. But the last one is a man called Mukhayriq. Mukhayriq, that's his name. And Mukhayriq, he was a Jewish man. In fact, he was from the rabbis, from ulama of the Yahud, from the rabbis, the learned Yahud. On the day of Uhud also, he went to his people. He said, Ya ma'ashar Yahud, oh you Jews, وَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمْ أَنَّ نَصْرَ مُحَمَّدٍ عَلَيْكُمْ حَقٌّ. You have known that it's a must for you to aid and support and believe in Muhammad. And they said, إِنَّ الْيَوْمَ يَوْمَ السَّبْتِ. Come on, Mukhayriq, today is Saturday, it's the Sabbath. Right? The Jews don't do anything on Sabbath. And he said, La sabta lakum. There's no Sabbath for you. And he took his sword and he went out. Before going out, he said, if I'm killed today, all of my wealth belongs to the Prophet ﷺ. And he went and he was killed. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said about him, Mukhayriq khayru Yahud, is from the best of the Jews. And that wealth he left was a lot of wealth, by the way. And that is where the Prophet ﷺ used to take to feed his family. Mukhayriq. Isn't it a shame that we did not even know this man, who his wealth, our Prophet ﷺ used to feed his family from? We cannot love our Prophet unless we know him. And this great man who actually gave their bodies and their wealth and their selves for him. أسلم يومئذ وقتل يومئذ. He became Muslim the same day and died the same day. مخيريق خير يهود. وفي رواية مخيريق سابق يهود. So these are some of those we had to mention. Now, how many Muslims were killed? There's a difference of opinion. The most famous opinion is that it was 70 Muslims. But there's some opinions which show that it was almost 100. Almost 100. Now, how do you bury 100 people? What happened, like I said, some people came from Medina. And some people came from Medina and took their relatives who were dead to go bury them. But at that moment, the Prophet ﷺ told them no, they should all return the bodies. Because now in Islam, the Shaheed, he is buried where he was killed. And the Shaheed is not to be washed. There's no ghusl of the person who was killed. But now there's so many of them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said what? You should make the grave and put 3, 4, 2 people in one grave. And that is how they were buried. And the Prophet ﷺ at this moment told them, to show the excellence of the people who died in Uhud, he said, أَنَا شَهِيدٌ عَلَى هَؤُلَاء أَمَامَ اللَّهِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. These people, I will vouch for them in front of Allah. That is why after that, the Prophet ﷺ used to say, I wish I was killed in Uhud also, because of the high status Allah gave the people of Uhud. That is why a few days before he died, the Prophet ﷺ, which we're going to see in the end of the Seerah, he went to Uhud and prayed on them. Tayyib. He said, cover them in the same clothes they have. And don't wash them, because this blood that will be resurrected on the day of judgment, it will look like blood, but it will be some of the purest and finest musk. And they used to be buried like that. But who do we bury first? The Prophet ﷺ, that's when he said, قدموا, you should put first who? أكثرهم أخذا للقرآن. The one who knows the more Quran. So they're burying 2, 3 people together in one grave. Who do we put first? The one who knows the Quran most. وهذا شرف لأهل القرآن. This is the nobility of the people who know the Quran, in this world and in the grave. Tayyib. Did he pray for them, Salatul Janaza, or not? This is now a fiqh issue. The scholars, they differed. There's narration which says he prayed on Hamza and a few of them, but not for all of them. Okay? It's a fiqh issue. We're not going to go into that. As we mentioned, Safiya, she brought cloth. And she said, okay, bury my brother Hamza in this. So when they covered Hamza and they were about to bury him, his family, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Zubair, they felt bad. They said, how come we're shrouding him, kafan, Hamza, and the other Sahaba, they don't have kafan. So they took out one piece and they just covered him in one piece, where if they cover his head, his feet will show. If they cover his feet, his head will show. So they covered his head and they put some of the herbs or shrubs, like some of the grass, leaves, and they covered his feet in that. Okay? And they buried also Abdullah bin Haram, the father of Jabir, together with his very close friend, the other old Shaykh Amr bin Jamuh, because they were very close friends. And they buried them together. Jabir said, I had taken my father to bury in Medina. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, no, bring them back. And they were buried together. Now you've seen how this man is special. Allah spoke to him directly. Jabir, he says, after around 40 years, during the time when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was now the Khalifa of the Muslim after the Prophet ﷺ died, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Al-Hassan, when Muawiyah was the leader, they made 2 canals to bring water from Uhud. There was 2 canals to bring water into Medina. What happened is that those 2 canals, some of the water seeped out and went to some of the graves of the people of Uhud, the Shuhada, after 46, 42 years. So they had to go excavate the bodies to move them to somewhere else. That is why the Shuhada of Uhud, where they are buried today, that's not the place where they were buried, most of them. Now many of them where they are, if you go to Umrah or Hajj, they'll take you to a place to see the Mashhad. That's not where they're actually buried. They were moved. Okay, most of them were moved. He said, Jabir, we dug up the grave, and his father had been hit in his ear. Like we said, they cut off his ear. And we found him fresh like he was buried yesterday. And he was holding his ear. Whenever we moved his hand, blood will come out. So we kept the hand back and they moved them and they buried them. Him and Amr bin Jamuh. Okay, him and Amr ibn al-Jamuh radiallahu anhum. Now Hamza, he was buried with his cousin Abdullah bin Jahsh. Okay, because Abdullah bin Jahsh, his mother is Umayma bint Abdul Muttalib. So their mothers are sisters. The mother of Abdullah bin Jahsh is Umayma, and the mother of, their uncle and nephew. Hamza is the brother of Umayma, and Umayma is the mother of Abdullah bin Jahsh. So they were family, they were buried together. Okay, they were buried together. And also someone who should mention is Mus'ab bin Umair. And this was one of the places which made people cry. Mus'ab, we talked about him in the beginning. Those of you who have missed the beginning of the Seerah, go back to the recordings. Mus'ab was known in Mecca for his fine clothes. He used to wear the best clothes, best shoes, best perfume. That's how people knew Mus'ab. Until he became Muslim and he became poor. And the day he was buried, they could not find even a coffin for him. If they covered his head, his feet would show. And they cried. Whenever the Sahaba, they used to remember that day, they used to cry. Years after that, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, one day they brought for him his dinner after he was fasting. And he said, today I have this kind of food. While my brother Mus'ab bin Umair, he died, he didn't even have a coffin shroud which was enough for him. Khabbab al-Arat, same thing, in Sahih al-Bukhari. He said, today we have all of this, but our brothers, they died, they didn't even have a coffin. Mus'ab bin Umair, they buried him. And like we said, Ikhwani, they were buried 2 together, 3 together, and like that. Now when you say they were buried in one shroud, one kafan, it doesn't mean one cloth, two bodies, no. They would cut that, a piece of cloth for one, a piece of cloth for one. Okay? That's how they were buried, radiyallahu anhum. Like we said, 70 or up to 100. As for the mushrikun who were killed, they were around 24, 26. Okay? 23, 24, 26. After the Prophet ﷺ had buried all of his Sahaba, he called the Muslims. And he told them, Istawu hatta uthniya ala Rabbi. He said, line up so I can praise my Lord. And he mentioned this famous dua, which is a great dua, very important dua. I'm going to read in Arabic and then translate after. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma laka alhamdu kullu. Allahumma la qabida lima basatta, wa la basita lima qabadta, wa la hadiya lima adlalta, wa la mudilla liman hadayta, wa la mu'tiya lima mana'ta, wa la mani'a lima a'tayta, wa la muqarrib lima ba'adta, wa la muba'id lima qarrabta. اللهم ابسط علينا من بركاتك ورحمتك وفضلك ورزقك. اللهم إني أسألك نعيم المقيم الذي لا يحول ولا يزول. اللهم إني أسألك النعيم يوم العيلة والأمن يوم الخوف. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر ما أعطيتنا وشر ما منعت. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم توفنا مسلمين وأحينا مسلمين وألحقنا بالصالحين غير خزايا ولا مفتونين. اللهم قاتل الكفرة الذين يكذبون رسلك ويصدون عن سبيلك واجعل عليهم رجزك وعذابك. اللهم قاتل الكفرة الذين أوتوا الكتاب إله الحق. It's a great dua. It has everything you need in this world and the akhirah. Allahumma laka alhamdu kulluhu. O Allah, all perfect praise belongs to you. The Muslim, he thanks Allah and praises Him in good and in bad times. Allahumma la qabida lima basatta. Nobody can hold back what you give. Wa la basita lima qabadta. And nobody can give what you don't want to give. Allahumma wa la hadiya lima adlalta. Nobody can guide the one you lead astray, and nobody can lead astray the one you guide. وَلَا مُعْتِيَ لِمَا مَنَعْتَ. Nobody can prevent what you have offered, and nobody can offer what you prevent. You say these words every day after salah. Allahumma la mani'a lima a'tayta, wa la mu'tiya lima mana'ta. Wa la muqarriba lima ba'adta. Nobody can bring close what you have put far, and nobody can put far what you have brought close. Okay? Allahumma absut alayna min barakatika wa rahmatika wa fadlika wa rizqik. Allah, spread out and give us a lot of your blessings and your mercy and your bounties and your rizq, your provision. Allahumma inni as'aluka na'im al-muqim alladhi la yahul wa yazul. Allah, I ask you for a good, delightful life which does not diminish or go away. Allahumma inni as'aluka na'ima yawm al-ayla. Oh Allah, I ask you delight on the day of poverty. Allahumma habib wal amna yawm al khawf. And I ask you for safety and security in the days of fear. Allahumma inni a'idhun bika min sharri ma a'taytana. Oh Allah, I ask your refuge from what you have given us. Because sometimes the wealth you have, what Allah has given you, becomes a fitna. Wa sharri ma mana'ta. What you have not given us, I ask you a refuge of it from. Allahumma habbib ilayna al-iman. Oh Allah, make iman, belief, beloved to us. And beautify our hearts with iman. And make kufr and wickedness and sins disliked in our hearts. And make us waj'alna min ar-rashidin, from those who are rightly guided. Allahumma tawaffana muslimin. Oh Allah, make us die as Muslims and make us live as Muslims and make us join after we die with the salihin. غَيْرَ خَزَايَ وَلَا مَفْتُونٍ. Before we are disgraced in this world or put into fitna. Allahumma qatil al-kafarat alladhina yukadhibuna rusulak. Oh Allah, destroy the disbelievers who reject your prophets. وَيَسُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ, and they prevent people from believing in your religion of Islam. And put on them وَجَعَلْ عَلَيْهِمْ رِجْزَكَ وَعَذَابِكَ, your wrath and your punishment. O Allah, destroy the disbelievers, الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ, those who have been given the book and then they don't believe. إِلَهَ الْحَقِّ, you are the Lord, the true God. It's a beautiful dua. Once he had made that dua, the Prophet ﷺ, now he left in the evening of the same day to return to Medina. And they returned to Medina. Now, when they returned to Medina, those other people who didn't get the news yet, they started to come out of their houses to meet whoever's coming back, who's killed, who did not make it back. And they found this woman. Her name is Hamna bint Jahsh. Okay? Hamna bint Jahsh. As you can see, she is the sister of Abdullah bin Jahsh. Hamna. And Hamna, her story is going to come again. She came out, Hamna bint Jahsh. They said to her, your brother Abdullah bin Jahsh was killed. She said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They said to her, your uncle Hamza, he was killed. She said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Then when they said to her, your husband Mus'ab bin Umayr was killed, she started to cry. And that is what the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna zawj al-mar'ati minha labimakan. The husband has a special place in the heart of a wife. The brother, yeah, it's sad. The uncle, yes, but because the husband and wife relationship is a very close relationship, especially if they are very close to each other and good to each other. She couldn't hold back. Hamna bint Jahsh radiallahu anha. Tayyib? And then there was this other woman. Also we have to mention a story. The woman from the tribe of Dinar, Banu Dinar. Her husband was killed. Her father was killed. In fact, I think from one narration says, her brother was also killed. She came out. She was told, your brother was killed. She said, Ma fa'ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What happened to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? They told her, your husband was killed. She said, what did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam do? What happened to him? They told her, your father has been killed. She said, what happened to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? They told her, huwa bihamdillahi kama tuhibbin. He is by the praise of Allah like you like. He is good, alhamdulillah, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She said, no. Arunihi hatta andura ilayhi. Show me that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is alive so I can see him. When they pointed at him, she said, kullu musibatin ba'daka jalalun. Ay saghira. She said, any calamity after you, O Prophet of Allah, that is small. My father, my mother, it doesn't matter. This is how much they loved him. This is how much they loved him. That is why me and you, we can never become like them. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, we can never become like them. Her father, her husband, her brother, she says, no, where's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Kullu musibatin ba'daka jalalun. Any calamity, sadness after you is small. And this is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is going to say after. He said, for the true believer, there is no calamity, no problem, no hardship can come to him except when he remembers the day I died, and everything becomes easy for him. The believer, no matter what comes to your life, the greatest loss you ever had was the day the Prophet ﷺ, he died. Taib, this is real love. This is really loving the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he returned to Medina. And of course, the women, they were crying for their husbands, some of them, for their fathers, for their brothers. And when the Prophet ﷺ, he heard this, imagine, he was injured. He was very sad because of Hamza. He said, وَلَكِنَّ حَمْزَ لَا بَوَاكِي لَهُ. But Hamza has nobody to cry for him. So when the women, they had that, they came to the house and they started crying for Hamza. And the night passed and the second day came and they were still crying. But now they were not just crying, they were screaming and shouting. And niyaha, it's called a niyaha. When the Prophet ﷺ, he heard it, he said, tell them to stop. Tell them to stop, that's enough. And that is when he said what? النائحة لا تدخل الجنة. The woman who comes and screams and tears her clothes and tears her hair just because someone died, she'll never enter Jannah. That's not the Islamic way. You can cry, but you don't scream and no, you don't do that. It's one of the major sins for women to do that. Tayyib? That was the Saturday, Ikhwani. The Prophet ﷺ, he went home and Fatima started treating his wounds because he was still bleeding. And every time they poured water, the blood would come out. So Fatima, smart woman, she took straw, the mat which is made of straw, and she burnt that into ash, and she put the ash into the wound, and the wound stopped bleeding. The wound stopped bleeding. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he gave his sword to Fatima and said, oh my daughter, clean the sword of mine. And Ali radiallahu anhu also took his sword and gave it to Fatima, his wife, and said, clean this sword, for Wallahi laqad sadaqani al-yawm. Today, this sword has really acted properly. When he said that, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَإِن كُنْتَ أَجَدْتَ الضَّرْبَ. If you think you fought well with your sword, بِسَيْفِكَ لَقَدْ أَجَادَهُ سَهْلْ بن حُنَيْف. Sahl bin Hunayf fought properly today. وَأَبُو دُجَانَ. And Abu Dujana fought well today. And Asim ibn Thabit. And Al-Harith ibn Samma. Radiallahu anhum. So now this was the night waking up to Sunday. But the Muslims were still scared. The Quraysh were not far. So they still, even though they were wounded. Remember, Abu Dujana, his whole back was full of arrows. Abu Talha al-Ansari, same thing. Talha bin Ubaidullah, his hand became paralyzed from that day. Az-Zubair, he had a wound. His son, Abdullah bin Zubair, says, when I was young, my whole hand could go into that wound. Abdurrahman bin Auf, he became crippled from that day, his leg. They were wounded. But they still had to stay up and guard Medina. Okay? Because they feared. That is why the next day or the day after, which is still Shawwal of the third year, news came to the Prophet ﷺ that Abu Sufyan, he was rethinking of coming back and attacking Medina. And that's actually what happened. They were leaving, like we said, they left the Quraysh, the Kuffar. But when they reached somewhere, they stopped and they said, you know what? You didn't really finish off Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Abu Bakr or Umar. And you didn't really finish off their religion. And you didn't impose on them losses and damage like they did for us in Badr. We should go back. We didn't finish this battle. And they started to argue between them. But Abu Sufyan and the others, because they were scared, they started to argue. While this was happening, they decided, obviously, actually what they said is, you never killed Muhammad and you never even went to Medina and attacked their women and took their women and their girls as slaves. So when the Prophet ﷺ heard of that, he called the people in Medina. He said, whoever fought in Uhud should go out with me. Only them. You thought that was tough? This is tougher now. Imagine they fought, they were wounded, they are tired. Now they're told, only you can go out. Nobody else should come. Only one exception. Jabir ibn Abdullah. He came and said, Ya Rasulullah, I want to go out. My father was killed and I only sat back in Uhud, from Uhud, because my father told me, look after my sisters. Now I have to go with you. And this is what is called the Battle of Hamra'ul Asad. It's the place called Hamra'ul Asad. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ, he put the men together and they set out. And he gave the flag to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. And of course, he put in charge of Medina Abdullah ibn Makhtum, the blind man, radiallahu anhu. While the Prophet ﷺ, his face had been wounded, his head had been wounded, he lost his tooth, and he was still suffering from the shoulder or the back and the hand pain. And these are the people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again in Surah Ali Imran, He revealed about them, الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحِ. Those who responded to Allah and His Messenger when they were called again, after they had suffered injuries, مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحِ, physical injuries and emotional injury. They lost some of the greatest Muslims. Allah says those ones, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah will give them a great reward. That is why Aisha used to say to Urwa bin Zubair, your father Abu Bakr and your father Az-Zubair, because Zubair married Asma. Okay, so Urwa, Abu Bakr is his grandfather and Zubair is his father. He said, your two fathers are from these people who Allah praised. They went out even though they had suffered wounds. الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا مِنْهُمْ وَأَحْسَنُوا الَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Surah Ali Imran 172. They went out and they camped there. And the one who used to lead the way was Thabit ibn al-Dhahhak radiallahu anhu. And they put their camp in the place called Hamra'ul Asad, just outside Medina, not very far. And at Hamra'ul Asad, a man by the name of Ma'bad ibn Abi Ma'bad, he passed by. He is from the tribe of Al-Khuza'a. And the people of Khuza'a, those who are Muslims and those who are not Muslims, they aligned with the Muslims. They never fought against the Muslims. So Ma'bad was still a Muslim that day. He said, oh Rasulullah, may Allah reward you for your losses. May Allah give you what is better. And he left. When he left, he went further and he met Abu Sufyan at the place at Rawha, where Abu Sufyan and his people were arguing, should we go back and fight, should we not go back? And finally they decided, okay, let's go back and fight. We either finish them off or take their women and their girls as slaves. But when Ma'bad came to them, they said, oh Ma'bad, did you see anything? He said, oh, I saw Muhammad and his Muslims, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have gathered an army which you cannot fight against. They gathered an army you cannot fight against. If you want my opinion, I think you guys should go back to Makkah right now. And they were filled with fear. They were filled with fear. Psychological, I told you, Abdullah. You gotta defeat him before he comes to the battlefield. You know, mentally is defeated. When they heard that, they used to fear the Muslims. And Allah always promised His Prophet, what? سَنُلْقِي فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الرُّعْبِ. Allah strikes terror into the hearts of the enemies. They say, you know what? Let's just go back. Okay? So they left full of fear and they went back to Mecca. When they reached a place called Um, before they reached Mecca, they saw a caravan of Abdul Qais. And they said to him, where are you going? They said, we're going to Medina. They said, okay, go tell Muhammad. That we have gathered an army which is so big, we're going to go destroy them. If you do that, I guarantee you camels full of provisions and raisins. So these people, they were going. When they reached Medina, and they saw the Prophet ﷺ at Hamra'ul Asad, the place the Prophet ﷺ was camped, he said, oh, Abu Sufyan has prepared a great army against you. But the difference, when the Muslims and the Prophet ﷺ in their lead, when they heard this, they said what? Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Hasbunallahu. Allah is enough for us. Wa ni'mal wakil, He is the best one who takes care of our affairs. They were not filled with fear. They didn't run back to Medina. And that is why Allah again revealed Surah to Ali Imran, guys. Like we said, 60 verses of Ali Imran are about Uhud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحِ. Those who responded to the call of Allah and His Messenger to go out and fight again after they were injured. لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ اتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Those who do good and they fear Allah, they'll have a great reward. الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ. Those who the people came of Abdul Qais and said to them, oh, the people have gathered against you, meaning Abu Sufyan. فَخْشَوْهُمْ, you should fear them. But that did not work. What happened? فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. That increased their iman. And then they said what? حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Ali Imran 173. Allah is enough for us and He'll take care of us. He's the best wakil. Allah says, فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ. They turned and they got for that, for putting their trust in Allah, they got Allah's bounties and favors. And no harm came to them after that day. No harm came to them after that day. That is why Abdullah bin Abbas, he used to say, as in Sahih al-Bukhari, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Sufficient is Allah for us and He is the best caretaker of our affairs. He said, قالها إبراهيم حين ألقي في النار. Those are the words Ibrahim alayhi salam said when his people threw him into the fire. You know the story. وقالها Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Those are the words Muhammad and his companions said when the people said, oh, they've gathered an army against you. The Muslim, in terms of trouble, difficulty, hardship, حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. That is enough. Allah is enough for me, He'll take care of me. خلاص. So the Prophet ﷺ, he stayed in Hamra'ul Asad for 3 days, waiting. Rijal, real men, they're ready for battle. He stayed in Hamra'ul Asad with their wounds for 3 days, waiting for Abu Sufyan, of course, who had run back with the other kuffar then to Mecca. And after 3 days, he came back to the Medina. But this had a very huge impact, vibrating impact in the whole world. Every other Arab said, okay, these Muslims, we can't play with them. Others, you'll see, they'll take a different approach. But a lot of them, they said, look, these people, they were wounded, a lot of them were killed, and right away they came out and were ready to fight with a small army, imagine. What was the ratio? 1-4. 700 men against 3,000. 200 horses against 2 horses. They said, okay, we can't play with them. Which balanced out what some people think Uhud was a loss. Uhud was not a loss. Muslims never lose. True Muslims, sorry, let me correct myself. True Muslims never lose. And these are the best true Muslims. They don't get better than that. They never lost. They were just punished for a sin. They were taught a lesson. The Prophet ﷺ, he came back. Now, when he was coming back, they caught a captive. They saw one of the Quraysh who didn't catch up with the army. And his name was Abu Azza al-Jumahi. Remember that guy? The poet. The poet who incited people to come back and fight. The poet who the Prophet ﷺ let him free in Badr. They caught him. And they brought him back to Medina. And he said, you know what? Ya Muhammad, aqilni, let me free. Wamnun alayya. Show me bounties, you know. I have daughters. فَإِنَّ لِي بَنَاتٍ. I have daughters. And now I give you another promise. I'll never come and fight against you or incite against you. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Wallahi, لا تمسح عارضيك بمكة بعدها. You will never go back to Mecca. وتقول خدعت محمدا مرتين. And then you say to your people, I deceived Muhammad twice. He let me free Badr, now he let me free also. Or you say سخرت بمحمد مرتين. وفي رواية ثالثة لا يلدغ مؤمن من جحر مرتين. That is when the Prophet ﷺ said what? A true believer is not stung from the same hole twice. A true believer is not naive. You know this hole, when you went there once, you're stung. There's a snake, whatever it is. You don't go putting your hand there again, right or wrong. Muslim learns from his mistakes. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded, and this man, he was killed and he deserved it. So, Surah Ali Imran, guys, from verse 121, 60 verses, it tells you this story. Okay? I have to say here, for added benefit, a few years ago, I did tafsir of Surah Ali Imran, all of it, alhamdulillah. It is on my YouTube channel. If you want added benefit of the whole surah, you can go listen to that tafsir. Just search my name. Search Abu Umar, you'll see the channel. There should be tafsir of Ali Imran. We're going to stop here for today and we'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. But this is the story of Uhud, guys, before the battle, during the battle itself, and the aftermath. Now we're going to learn the lessons of Uhud. Tomorrow, inshallah, which is the most important part, I'd love to repeat this always. Our Seerah, the way we're studying the Seerah, inshallah, is like no other way. We learn from the Seerah. And we bring details. I can guarantee you guys, not to brag, but very few people have discussed the Seerah the way we are discussing it. I want to tell you to be patient. To be patient. We are doing a great thing. If I ask you today, what other masjid do you know? Not in Canada, in North America probably, in Europe, people are learning the Seerah in this depth and detail. I'm sure you can't mention 2 other masjids. I'm very serious, guys. So we should be happy. Allah has guided us to this. And as we know, we have seen, the Seerah is the whole deen. Everything is here. Tayyib? So the lessons from Uhud, we're going to discuss that tomorrow and then continue from there, inshallah. Any questions? Afwan. Any questions tomorrow also, because it's late. Tayyib? From 5 to 10, tentatively. 5 to 10, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.